Okay, so we will start a website where we describe the activities of this center, and we will video record all the lectures here. We will invite many foreigner professors. I think that we must transform this place into an international research center for young people. Okay? So old people should be here only for teaching and directing the research of younger generations. We have a big problem. Your background is not uniform. So we must work a lot to make your scientific background uniform. You must be patient, because without mathematics you cannot do any science. So you must learn the minimum necessary mathematics for understanding how to develop and apply good scientific models. Of course, you don't want to be mathematicians, so you will use mathematics as a tool. I like this metaphor. You are driving a car without knowing how to build it. Okay? But you must know the basics of the functioning of a car. If you don't know that you need to add fuel, you cannot drive it. Okay? It is not a very precise analogy, but I think it is a good beginning. I have a background in classical studies. I studied Greek and Latin literature as a student, and I studied the Greek mathematics and the Greek philosophy of science before starting my university studies. And I think that this was very useful for understanding physics. I got a master in theoretical physics, then a master in mathematics, and now I'm teaching in engineering schools. So I think it is worth that in order to understand each other a little bit, I tell you something about history of science, history of mathematics, and how Persia played a role in this history. I hope that they are teaching you that the word algorithm comes from a famous, in Europe we call it algorithmi. I don't know how you are pronouncing it.
Khwarazmi, we call him Khwarazmi.
Okay. So even reading the same sentence is made in a different way. Now one should ask himself how it is possible that contributions to mathematics are coming from different countries. Being clever is not peculiar of one particular nation. You find clever people everywhere. Of course, if you are not teaching to people to read, they cannot write poems. Why we are speaking in English? Because your language is impossible for me, and my language is impossible for you. Think about this. There is a beautiful expression in Greek. I write it with Latin words. Koine. Persia was part of the Greek koine. You know what it means, koine? Koine means the cultural union of different people who use a common code of communication. The Greek koine started from Spain and reached India. There was a Greek kingdom in West India for at least 200 years. Greek was the language of science for many centuries, and everything written in Greek was read in India, in Persia, in Rome, in Greece. Okay. South Italy is called Magna Grecia. The big Greece. Because South Italy was where the biggest cities of Greek culture were founded. Syracuse was 500,000 inhabitants, the 3rd century before Christ. Greek roots are present in the great majority of scientific words. If somebody doubts about the fact that Greek science was the first one, I don't mean Greek, South Italy or Greece. Greek science is everything which has been written in Greek in this big part of the world, starting from Spain and arriving to India, including your country. Okay? Greek science was the first one producing technological tools and technological solutions for human problems. Think about the word hydrodynamics. Hydro is genitive of hydor, which means water. Dynamics is the Greek word for force. So hydrodynamics is the study of the effect of forces applied to water. Now, Greek language collapsed and Greek koine disappeared because of the stupid wars which led to the fall of the East Roman Empire. Okay? Don't believe people telling that East Roman Empire collapsed because of Islamic invasion. It is not true. Do you know who was the cause of the collapse of East Roman Empire? Venice. Venetians used a crusade. Instead of going to free Jerusalem, they decided to destroy Constantinople. As a result, Islamic armies arrived at the border of Vienna. You know, human beings are stupid everywhere. You claim that your enemy is Islam. It is stupid because Islamic tradition of Sicily produced beautiful cakes. I will show you cannoli when we will go together to Rome or to Napoli, and I will show you how beautiful can be the melting pot of different cultures, producing some cakes which are paradise. Okay? But okay, imagine to be stupid and to believe that your enemy is Islam. Okay? What you do? You attack the strongest Christian empire which is protecting you from the wave of Islam. Okay, let's go back to the collapse of Greek. All Greek texts were stolen from the libraries of Constantinople, came in Italy, and we had Renaissance. During Renaissance, because of the understanding of science, Italy became the richest country in the world. Just for giving you an idea, in 1500, the Italian gross product was bigger than French, German, British, and Indian ones. And if you go to Rome, you understand this. There are some roofs of some churches bigger than 5 football fields. This wooden roof is covered with a layer of gold. Okay. Then science moved to France, England. They became richer. Greek has been replaced by Latin, and Latin for a while has been the common language for science. The last professor in Napoli teaching in Latin was in 1750, more or less. So the Latin Koine, Newton wrote in Latin. The Latin Koine lasted for a long while. Then we had the Babel. Everybody was writing science in his own language. The final result is that, for instance, a book written by Gabriel Piola in 1848, you will hear this name a lot because this is the mechanician, Italian mechanician who gave the biggest contributions to continuum mechanics. In 1848, Gabriel Piola wrote a book in Italian. Why he wrote it in Italian? Gabriel Piola was a very well-educated person. He could write French and German, at least. Why he wanted to write in Italian? Maybe you don't know, but you will learn this because I will tell you this. Italy is relatively young as a united nation. At the epoch of Piola, there were 21 different states in Italy. Milano, where Piola was working, was under the domination of Austrian Empire. Okay? Piola wanted to write his books in Italian because he wanted to prove that Italian was a language rich enough to allow the publication of highly sophisticated scientific books. This was a very good intention, which had a very bad result. Why? Because what you read in this book of Piola, written in, it has been written in English in 2006, and the author of the book of 2006 claims he invented the theory of Piola. When I told him what you are doing, he said, I don't read Italian. I answered, it is your fault. Italian is in your library. Do you believe that somebody who is a good mathematician cannot read formulas? The big problem of the bubble of languages is that actually every language rediscovers what has been discovered in the other languages. This is extremely stupid. Now, you don't know Italian. Believe me, Italian is rather distant from English. And everybody who hears me speaking in English, knowing Italian, claims that I'm speaking with a heavy Neapolitan accent, which I don't want to hide. Because Napoli is the place where the first state university in the world was founded by Frederick II Hohenstaufen, the sacred Roman emperor, in 1224. So I don't see why I should hide my Neapolitan accent. Moreover, when I'm speaking in English, I'm using the part of English built on Latin. Everybody who knows Latin recognizes immediately that English syntax is molded on the Latin syntax. So, with some effort, an Italian can talk in English. But English has also other advantages. It is easy. The structure of the English grammar and the structure of the English syntax is very simple. They have a big problem. They were lazy. They did not update the way in which they are writing words with the change of sounds. I said algorithmy. You are sounding it in a different way. Why? Because languages are evolving. And when they are evolving, the way of pronouncing words changes. Now, in Italian, we decided to update the way of writing the words in order to keep the correspondence between what you are reading and what your mouth is pronouncing. French and English have frozen the way of writing, and they are evolving only in the way of pronouncing what they are reading. In one word, Italian is a phonetic language, English is not a phonetic language. I don't know, you will teach me if Persian is phonetic or not. Okay? You should also teach me if Persian is Indo-European or not. I don't know. I must learn something about your country. Okay? So you will teach me if in your language there are declensions or not. I think that Persian, being the language of high educated Islamic intellectuals, should be a very complex language. But it is not possible that I learn Persian, and believe me, you cannot learn Italian. Because Italian has very difficult constructions in many aspects. So we must use English. So why I'm telling all this? You must learn English looking at YouTube, choose movies with subtitles, and spend hours hearing. Okay? The biggest difficulty with English is pronunciation. Okay, you must reach a clear Persian style English. Okay? I am speaking Neapolitan English, you will speak Persian English. We will communicate. Okay? So this is a tool for communication. We cannot change the situation. The imperialistic Britain imposed its own language, and what can we do? Do you know that in my classes in Italy, if a student raises a finger and asks me to speak English, in principle I should give my lecture in English? And think that Britain is now out of European Union, and this is a law of European Union. You should forget ideology. I agree with you. Venice was a very bad imperialistic power. They did very bad things. Britain has been a very bad imperialistic country doing very bad things. But we don't mind about past. We have a tool for communicating and we must use it. Okay? Okay, you have understood that I want to talk about methods today and ideology. However, I am, of course, you will pull my leg, I will accept that you pull my leg. Science has been invented by Greeks. Okay? And Greeks are the biggest Greek country, the biggest Greek nation has been in South Italy. Napoli is Neapolis, the new town. Neapolis is the place where Epicurean philosophers invented philosophy of science. Syracuse is where Archimedes. I know that in your country there is the word for Archimedes. Yeah, Archimedes probably, you know, my definition of Greek koine is the union of every language where you have a word for Archimedes, which is old enough, dating at least from the first millennium. Okay? Syracuse was a city very rich and very powerful because of the advanced technology developed there. Do you ever heard about Cicerone? He was a famous Latin politician. He wrote Historia Magistra Vitae. I don't know if your language has declensions or not. Latin has declension. History is the teacher of life. History is important because we learn from history which mistakes we should not repeat. How it is possible that Syracuse, powerful, rich, very well organized, was defeated by the barbarians, Romans? The war between Syracuse and Rome had a ratio 20 Romans dead, 1 Syracusan dead. How it is possible that they have lost? They have lost because they were shared, divided. Somebody, enemy of the tyrant Hieron in power in Syracuse, opened the doors of the city. Betrayal. So, even if Greeks invented the word democracy, even if they invented science, they could not have a working political system which allowed them to exploit their intellectual superiority. I will send you via mail a nice book about this, which is full of mathematics and full of history. You can understand the role of Persia in the Greek Koine. You will learn what happened to Greek science. But what now I want to tell you is some basic ideas coming from Greek philosophy of science about mathematical modeling of physical reality. I am thinking about this Turkish student we have here. She's an architect, and she was worried about this. Architecture in the modern way has been invented by Vitruvius. Vitruvius was a Latin beginner. He was reading Greek texts, not understanding everything, but he was capable to use the rules for building, which were developed with a scientific method. So the true difference between modern engineering and modern architecture is this one. Engineers want to know the mathematics which is at the basis of their design. Architects are applying these rules without asking themselves why these rules are valid. Okay, of course, architects like very much to say that they are artists. Somebody many years ago gifted me a glass container of water having this shape. It is made of glass. I filled it with water up here the first time, and it was broken immediately there. Then I checked in the web. It was an architect who had designed this completely useless tool. I mean, I agree, elegance. I agree with elegance. Elegance, beauty should be pursued. I agree. But a container conceived for pouring water should allow you to pour water. If you fill it the first time, you take it with the handle, and the handle is immediately broken, this is a totally useless device. Before the arrival of Greek books from Constantinople, in Italy nobody could build a dome. They were collapsing. There are books of, do you know Gothic architecture? Gothic architecture is the architecture which was developed in Europe during the Gothic kingdoms, immediately after the collapse of the Roman Empire. These buildings are very dark because they did not manage to build big windows, and they have structures which are very long, high, with arches one after the other supporting one the other. In the books of architecture of those times, you read, you see a drawing, and then you read at the bottom, Deus vult, God wants. Deus non vult, God does not want it. Do you know what they were doing? They were building this structure and waiting. If they were falling down, they wrote Deus, God does not want it. We are moving towards what is science. Greek science is the capacity of predicting what will happen before it happens. This is science. The capacity of predicting the behavior of the systems which we are building. Imagine that you want to develop airplanes with trials and errors. How many people will die before having an airplane which is taking off? So the key word is prediction. We must predict what will happen. Okay? How we can do it? We can do it with mathematical models. I give you an example before ending this first lecture. Then, you know, I prefer, of course, you can believe that I am an old senile man who likes to talk about history for not talking about technical details. I can challenge you, I still am able to do some mathematics, developing all technical details. However, mathematics and the technicality has to be driven by a vision. You should not make calculations blindly, or you take a big software and you play with it, getting results. This is totally useless if you don't understand why you are doing it, where you are going. Let us talk about the description of universe conceived by Greek science. There was a Greek scientist called Aristarchus. He invented the mathematical model of solar system with the sun in the center. Okay? It is not clear how the theory was developed by Greeks because all books were lost. So let us describe what is written in the books of Laplace. Okay? You have one material point in the center. What is a material point? A mathematical abstraction. Okay? It is not a planet. We start understanding that we must distinguish between the mathematical entity and the physical entity. You have physical objects. These physical objects are described with mathematical objects. Think about the Earth. If you want to describe the movement of the Earth around the Sun, you can neglect the dimensions of the Earth. If you want to study the sequence summer, autumn, winter, spring, then you cannot consider the Earth as a point. You need to consider it as a sphere which is turning around an axis, and this axis is bent with respect to the plane of the motion of Earth around the Sun. Why? Because the amount of light reaching the square meter of Earth changes in different seasons. So you understand also the strange thing that in South Hemisphere you have summer when here we have winter, and vice versa. So to be closer to the Sun does not mean that you stay warmer, because this inclination plays a role. So why this example is important? This example is important because if you want to study the motion of the Earth around the Sun, or Mercury, of Jupiter, every planet moving around the Sun, the mathematical model material particle is enough. But if you want to describe what happens in the season sequence, then this model must be improved, and the Earth will become a sphere or a geoid, because you may want to describe the fact that it is slightly shorter, the radius at the top. By the way, Archimedes knows that because of centrifugal forces, the Earth could not be perfectly spherical. Okay. So what it has to be clear to you is that the same physical object can be described with different mathematical entities, depending on the particular phenomenon you have in mind. Okay, we will go back to this, because if you want to study the beam, if you want to study the deformation of a body, you must decide which model is needed for describing the phenomenon in which you are interested. Okay? Okay, now you write force equal mass times acceleration. You declare that this law is true for every planet. You write the force applied to every planet, introducing the gravitational coefficient. You say that the distance between two masses plays a role in this force. You decide that the mass of the Sun is much bigger than the others, so in a first approximation every planet is interacting only with the Sun. Okay? You solve these equations, which is not easy, and you get a prediction. So you say every planet moves in a trajectory which is an ellipse, and you can write the period of motion of every planet, the famous Kepler laws. So you conjecture that the radius of a planet is not important in the motion of the planet around the Sun. Is this conjecture true or not? We don't know, a priori. Okay? Then we conjecture that the force is inversely proportional to the distance. You assume that the force, the square of the distance, you assume that the force is proportional to the masses of the planets. Okay? You make a list of assumptions, and at the end you say, take your telescope, in this date this planet must be there. So you predict what will happen. Now, if you apply this prediction to Mercury, you discover that Mercury is not where it should be. This is very important. You must understand this. Either you believe that your telescope is wrong, Mercury is a magic planet which is not following the rules like the other planets. You can invent many, learn this expression, ad hoc. If you don't know what it means, go and look in the vocabulary, in the dictionary. It's a Latin expression which is English now. Ad hoc means you choose a particular explication for explaining something outside the theory which you are developing. But we will talk about ad hoc explications many times. Or you must accept that Newton theory is not general enough to describe the motion of Mercury. If you confuse the mathematical model with the physical object, you are lost, because you cannot change it. Instead, if you have a clear distinction between mathematical object and physical object, the physical object is what it is, and I change the mathematics for describing the physical reality, inventing a mathematical model which is more suitable. Okay? In order to describe the motion of Mercury, you need relativity. And the law of Newton is not good anymore. Okay, now let us think about this. When we want to design satellites, do you want to use relativity or do you want to use Newton's law? If the satellite has a speed which is low compared with light speed, it is useless to decide to apply the most complicated theory. So it is much better if we use the simplest one, which requires less mathematics and gives the correct predictions. Okay? So, being an engineer, you should not look for the best theory. You must look for the theory which is applicable with the minimum effort. These considerations I'm telling you, you can find exactly already in the book of Archimedes. Now, I really want to end, but I want to tell you this, we will talk about this next time. Do you know when in history of science a mathematical theory failed the first time? Pythagorean mathematics. For Pythagoreans, all numbers were rational. So they believed their theory was the following: every quantity can be described as a ratio. Okay? Then apply the theorem of Pythagoras to the simplest rectangular triangle. You discover that the hypotenuse is square root of 2. I hope that you know, otherwise I will prove it for you next time. Square root of 2 is not a rational. You have two opportunities, two possibilities. First, triangles are not existing. Second, my theory is wrong. And it is not true that every number is a rational number. Okay? You will not believe it. For nearly 1 century, Greeks preferred to claim that this was not existing. Historia magistra vitae. People, for not studying some mathematics, refuses some empirical evidence. Okay?